Take a look at district-wide. You'll notice that there's a difference in $525,649, a 3.88% increase. That's in the district-wide budget. The vast majority of that is due to things in the capital plan. And we continue in this not-so-new building, we continue to do very positive and proactive upkeep. And it's very impressive to watch Robert Clark as he really manipulates a lot of things. Energy efficiency is way up. Our lighting system, our fuel use is our lighting system is much better, much more efficient. Our fuel system is much better as well. And we continue to look for ways to improve that. That said, there are some things that have to happen. There are some maintenance things that have to happen, and so we have those in this budget. Some notable things. We did a lot of big things this year. We replaced the roof of the auditorium. We did the HVAC systems. We began replacing that. We did some flooring replacement. For next year, we're looking at doing some more safety infrastructure. Kind of continuing to look at our facility and kind of looking at how we can make it safer, yet also keep it accessible to students and to the public. We're going to continue flooring replacement next year. This year we did some work in the social studies hallway. We did some work in the cafeteria. Next year we're going to do some repair over in BAMS. The school takes a beating. There's a lot of people walking through. We're also next year looking at doing some lighting maintenance on Tenney Field and Matowich Field. For the past few years we've struggled, especially on Matowich Field, to keep the same appropriate number of lumens. And there's a lot of light bulbs up there, and when we work on that, we have to do it all at once. We can't just kind of rent the crane, for every light bulb. So what we do is we kind of wait, and then we go and we reset the whole system. And that's something that's on the docket for next year as well. Other things, it's time to sand the floor of the gymnasium. It's 1/3 of the way through its useful life. And so, we do work on the gym floor every summer, but this year we'll sand it down, what do you call that, relining it?
The floor?
The
gym floor?
Yeah.
Repaint.
Repaint.
Refinish.
Thank you.
Yeah, refinish.
I just do outdoor sports. We'll continue to do campus painting, some more window replacement, and that's been an ongoing thing. And so that's kind of the district-wide for operations. The other piece of district-wide, which is a little bit more challenging for us, is currently we have 2.6 positions in technology support, and that includes Robert Whitberg, who kind of runs our IT department, his full-time assistant, and then we have another half-time assistant who works in BAMS. What we're finding is that those 2.5 gentlemen don't have enough time to get everything done they need to get done. As we get more technology into the hands of students, we're finding we need to do more work in the summertime, upgrading things, upgrading our network. They do an incredible job expanding our network, expanding our coverage, making sure that everything is up to snuff. But as we get bigger and wireless technology places more demands, we need to continue to upgrade that. So in this budget, we are asking to take that that 0.5 position to bring it to full-time year-round, so they can get more work done in the summer that they can't really get done during the year because our clients are here. So we do ask for that. The other thing in district-wide has to do with our school resource officer position. We've been paying, I think, about $40,000. Is that about right per year? I'm in the ballpark.
Yeah.
And we've been paying about $40,000 a year, and that's due to a very generous contract we've had with Windham County Sheriff. Unfortunately, they've lost money on that contract for several years, and they've been very kind. They have begun to look closer at their contracts, and so we are going to have a significant increase in the cost of a school resource officer next year. And it's going to be about a $29,000 increase to cover the cost of the contract. One thing that we've talked with the sheriff and with the Brattleboro Police Department is do we want to switch back to using Brattleboro Police for our school resource officer? That conversation is ongoing. The price for whether we go with Brattleboro Police Department or the Windham County Sheriff, the price is about the same, the total cost. It's about a total cost of about $69,000, which is up from $40,000 that we budgeted for.
What you're speaking about right now, was that included in that 3.88 increase or not?
Yes. Yes,
It is. So everything that you've highlighted is represented
absolutely.
by that 3.88 increase?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like a used car salesman, but I'm not. It's all included. Any questions about the district-wide piece?
So, it's the stuff you were going over, I mean, some decent numbers, but we're talking about over $500,000.
Right. And
That sounds like a lot more than floors and half a position in there.
Well, the other major increase is in special education, and I don't know if Steve he probably wasn't part of the subsequent review since the finance committee last week and today, but Steve's correct in proportionally the maintenance capital plan is a very substantial part of district-wide. As far as the increase goes, it's a couple of lines down on page 3. If you keep following through what Steve was reviewing, so he reviewed the plant, and the page 2 is where the increase in the SRO and so on. That's part of the $22,000 increase in contracted technical services under maintenance and security. But on page 3, we begin reviewing the special education programs. So when you go to the bottom of page 3, we have 2 subtotals there. One says special ed ineligible, and the one above that says special ed eligible for reimbursement. That's where you see some pretty big swings there. One is down $236,000, but the other one's up $626,000. So the net there is, nearly $400,000 increase, and that is a reflection of restructuring the special education services. The reduction is associated with creating something called a transition program and a step services program to improve outcomes for students with a sort of a behavior focus on addressing some of the challenges that we have, and then so that accounts for sending some folks to the central office as an employer, part of centralizing special ed services. It's a required shift that you probably remember from a couple of years ago as well for the professional staff. So this is for the paraeducator group, and then the large increase is reflecting an assessment coming back. So it's a shift where the SU is employing folks that were employed here. So this budget goes down and that budget goes up. So that's pretty much a wash. But
So
then,
there's a comparable $626,000 decrease somewhere in the other budgets?
No, and so what I was about to explain is the contracted services, the one that is up to $626,000, that does include the outside placement tuition costs that are incurred when we're not able to educate a student at BUHS and we have to tuition them out. That cost goes through the supervisory union, comes back here as an assessment. And my understanding is there's going to be at least a couple $100,000 increase in a family that has moved in that's new. It's a new commitment. So that accounts for a substantial part of that increase.
Frank, is some of that offset by increased revenues?
Yes, it will be.
By state and federal?
Yep, and that's a very important point. Generally, special education costs are reimbursed by the state of Vermont to the district, not to the supervisory union, but to the school district at a rate of 60%. So when we have if there is an individual tuition expense for a student, there's another level of reimbursement from the state. Any dollar over $50,000 spent on an individual student that's eligible for an individual education plan is reimbursed at 90%. So even though we are seeing a significant increase here, we'll see a significant increase in revenue that will help us with our cost per student cap that we have to navigate through as part of this Act 46 allowable growth.
So to consider this budget correctly, although it looks like there's this $626,000 increase in the budget, there will be an increase in revenue that counteracts that. So it is not really as big an increase as it looks like on paper.
Well, yep, you're right, but one other point to that is the board has to present a number to the voters that authorizes the board to spend, and it is not a net number of revenue. So the board has to budget all expenditures, whether they're reimbursed by various sources or not. And then, so your point is correct in that, yes, we will see a significant increase in expenditures associated with this new program cost. But when we go to calculate the tax rate is based on net spending. So it's spending minus revenues, net spending divided by students. And
I understand that.
yeah.
So Frank, is this 626,773 also reflect students that are outplaced now that we hope and expect will be brought back into the system?
It does. This number would be $130,000 higher if we didn't take that into consideration, and that is one of the purposes of this of this restructuring is to do that. Yeah, that it's expected that some of the outcomes will be better services, but also services provided here as opposed to outside provided.
Yep.
Can I back up just a second to the,
I had a question on that though.
okay, go ahead.
So, it was my understanding, but maybe I was wrong, that next year, instead of 13 teachers in the special ed, there will only be 10. So I was just wondering how that is reflected in this increase.
Yeah, and so that is also at the SU budget. Okay, so so when we look at the SU budget that is run on behalf of the Brattleboro Union High School and then assessed, that budget is lower for that group of folks. If you look at the detail of that budget, you're correct. There's
But that's still reflected in these two numbers, the decrease of 236 or the increase of 626.
it is
So
in
that's
those.
all,
Yep.
it's rolled in.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is, as I mentioned, because we're just receiving equalized students, which is going to require a revisiting of all of our assumptions. We'll be revisiting that as well. That proposal, all within the next week or two.
Yeah. Because isn't the budget slated to be approved on the 7th of January?
Early January, yes.
Yes. Yes.
Because we have to have so many days before the
Right.
annual meeting,
Right,
30
exactly.
30 days, 30 to 40, yeah. Could I just back up and clarify back
What page?
on bottom of page 2, operations and maintenance. The third line down has the word tuition in it, which is down 137,000. How does that fit into the page? It says page 2 on my page.
Yes, that's a good question.
Okay.
Yep, do we see that? It's a the first column, it starts with a $300,000 number, and then a 149, and then a 294, and then a 157, and you're referring to the word tuition in that line. Do we see that? 1, 2, 3
Right,
lines up from the bottom?
because the category is operations and maintenance.
Yep. What this is insurance. When it says other services, that's what a 500 can mean, a 500 code, and now I'm looking at the object code that's to the right of that. So 500 it means different things in different functions, according to the Agency of Ed's chart of accounts. And so 500 in instruction means tuition, 560 is public school tuition, 556 is 566 private school tuition, and so on. In maintenance, 500 is like a 520, 521, those are insurance expenses. And we were putting workers' comp in this group because it is part of a premium payment that we make. But in the new budget, we're associating workers' comp where it truly is associated with, which is it's a percentage of payroll. So it's been put in the benefit codes for every cost center. So it's a kind of it's an aligning cost where they should go.
Frank, and maybe this is what is confusion, is that it looks like every time in this budget outline that there's a 500, it says other services tuition and then TR. So it's just that. So there's nothing in this one for
Right.
operation maintenance. There's no tuition cost. It's just the label
That's-
goes down. I was looking at the SU budget, and the 500 line is other purchase services is what it says every time it's repeated. So it's just a different program that just sticks in a generic label. So it doesn't mean that there's tuition for operation maintenance, I assume.
That's right.
That we're not sending people to school, or whatever the tuition is. We're not outsourced, but anyways.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
it's-
that's clear now, it's the workers' comp moving back into the benefits category.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
But other services went down $5,000, but benefits only went up 159?
Right, because so many of those workers' comp premium dollars really belong in English, science, math.
Oh, I
And
see, okay.
So we took out over 100,000 in workers' comp, but we did leave about 50,000 in building because workers' comp is about 6% of payroll if you're maintenance, but less than 1% if you're a teacher, just because of the nature of the work and, the probability of injury.
Yes, we janitors do more dangerous work than teachers, generally.
Generally.
Okay, sorry, back a little bit.
Okay. Are we done with district-wide?
I have one question.
Sure.
Keith, I wasn't paying attention. But because of the realignment in special ed to bring students from placement back into the school, did you say that you're hiring a teacher to do that? I mean, does it overlap the special ed function?
I'm not hiring a teacher specifically for that, but it could benefit or give us more options. I don't think, the special ed, these are all up to, teams have to make those decisions for individual kids. So, but if those decisions, if we have options for kids that are on the fringe of going to an outplaced school, if we have an option at BAMS to bring them back and make them successful, that's what I'm trying to create. We also have a population that's kind of there and coming in that have a lot of challenges, present a lot of challenges, and right now we basically have nothing between a regular classroom and we have something. It's a part-day program with peak between the regular classroom and outplacement. So I'm trying to create something where we can provide an alternative setting prior to having to go to the option of outplacement.
So economically speaking, Frank, would it be better to, be best served to have it under BAMS or under special ed if there is?
Well, special ed is reimbursed, but the very stringent criteria for when we report costs to the state and say, hey, would you give us our 60%, that we meet a criteria, and they are very strict about that criteria. So from that point of view, what's most important is that we're maximizing the benefit to the program and to the student, and whether they're reported as special ed at or special ed at BUHS, the reimbursement is the same. But it is all subject to an audit where there's a time study that reviews every employee's or during an audit, a selective group of employees' actual work history, and then they look at an individual student IEP and they say, okay, did the IEP require those services? And if they did, then we get reimbursed, and if they didn't, then we don't apply for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you go back to that packet, if you look at page 6, about 2/3 of the way down, it says school, it says BUHS Senior High 91. It shows that our proposed budget this year is $8,588,038, and that we are down 0.5%. So a couple of the highlights and a couple of trends. Currently, we're at 750 students at the high school. That's significantly down from a few years ago. And we could spend a lot of time talking about why, but that's not. It does look as though next year our incoming 9th grade will be considerably larger. Our current 9th grade is just underneath 200, it's about 189 students. And we're estimating approximately 230 to 240 students coming in next year as 9th graders. Again, that's an estimate based on total enrollment in the area, both public and private schools.
So that would make the total about 790?
Right, 798, I think was the total.
How many seniors are graduating?
Right.
Isn't that the?
Ask me in June.
Yeah, well, how many seniors do we have?
We have 217 students.
So the increase only be like 13 to 23 students then,
Yeah.
overall?
Yep.
For the student.
In terms of discretionary budget, our discretionary increase, which don't include salary and staff, just what departments ask for, are a total of $498,000, which is an increase of about $12,000 over last year. And that's pretty significant, and I'll talk about why in a second. In terms of staffing, we are reducing an English teacher by 1 full-time equivalent for next year. We had a teacher that left last year, and we did not replace that teacher. They are reflected in this year's budget. They won't be reflected in next year's. And we're also eliminating our part-time family interventionist. That's a stipended position that we're eliminating. I would remind the board that follows reductions we've recently done in modern and classical language. We cut 2/3 of the Spanish teacher. We've reduced Latin as well, and we've also reduced in the social studies department. So we've been doing it by attrition, and we hope to keep doing that. But we also recognize that Act 46 may require us to do something else. The biggest increase, the biggest reason for that increase has to do with our math department is asking for new algebra textbooks. The algebra textbooks they have were purchased in 2003. They've been rebound several times, and they just can't stay bound. And so they are asking for approximately $15,000 to buy new algebra books for next year, which is that's a reasonable request given the lifespan of a book. They did explore the possibility of electronic text, because using Chromebooks, you would hope it would be able to access electronic media. We found out when we did that the cost would be slightly less. It would be about $12,000 to $13,000, but that would be a cost that we would pay every year. So it doesn't make any sense to do that. You know, publishers figured out how to continue to make money. That really are our main, those really are the main requests. Any questions?
With the dropping through attrition of staff, is the class sizes stayed about the same? And are we losing in the services we're providing? Or?
You know, because we've been shrinking staff as we've lowered population, we've been able to keep class sizes. There are some departments that we're looking at class size pretty closely at right now. But, you know, our core courses are running everywhere from about 16 to 18 students, average class size.
Okay.
Do you expect any retirements this year?
I don't know. But we've been very successful in previous years. You know, the buyout program that we did a few years ago, we have had a lot of turnover, and you know, obviously that's helped when we've developed budgets every year. But there's a point at which people aren't gonna, you know, the people that are eligible to retire have retired. And you know, look, if you look at the high school now, it's a much younger faculty than it was 4 years ago. So I can't give you a definite answer. We're certainly not going to see.
And not a massive.
No. I think
No,
maybe one or two. You know, that said, you know, the other thing that happens is sometimes people move on just because they change careers or location. That necessarily isn't a cost saving, and we won't know that till we hire. So.
That massive number of young teachers that.
Right. And I have to tell you, I'm not disparaging our veteran staff, but we have some amazing young teachers on staff now. They are doing great work.
We did a good job, didn't we?
Steve, is this the first time this high school budget is coming lower than the previous year?
No.
It's come lower several times as a result of the attrition of staff. The high school budget has been regularly coming down.
Yeah, I would say it's been down over the last 4 or 5 years, actually.
Hats off, congratulations, thank you.
Thank you for supporting the retirement buyouts and things like that. They help.
You know, are the buyouts, are the payments done at this one? Or are there still some?
This was the last year.
This was the last year.
So we haven't paid off the building.
Thank you. We won't put Ray on the spot here, but in turn, we can take a look at the bottom line of the Career Center, and that would be on page 11, next to the bottom line, right?
Right.
And that shows an increase of 0.98, and I'll just briefly say about that is that every program is being evaluated for you know, how many students do we have, how many are we likely to have, how can we grow it, or do we need to make some changes. And it shows an overall increase of $24,000 for WRCC, which is a little less than 1%. And do you remember, Frank, what the census projection is in that? Is it 190 full-time equivalents?
I guess I don't remember. I know we're right around 150 right now. Does that sound
That sounds
familiar?
about right.
Yeah, we're about 150 now, and
Well, then it probably isn't 190. I thought it
We'll get that answer tomorrow, Bob.
yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, that's the last number that I had shared with you. It's about 150. Does that sound?
But in any case, just so that everybody on the board knows that that budget has been combed through the same way, and like all the others, is still subject to some modifications based on what the math does to us.
Right.
So overall, that at this point yields a 2.28% differential in the grand total, and a proposed budget of $28,553,801. Stay tuned. All right, thank you, Frank.
You're welcome. Thank you to these.
I know it's a moving target.
It is. Yeah.
Moves daily.
does.
Okay, so I guess we will move into the regular part of the meeting. And Jane is unable to be here tonight, so Ruth is stepping into her real official position.
Bear with me, I'm not a good note taker.
You'll be just fine. Okay, so we're gonna start as always with, well, we started with the budget review, but next item would be the clerk's report and the approval of the minutes of November 16th, which were circulated recently. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay,
Second.
got Russ and seconded by Sean. Are there any additions, deletions, or corrections to those minutes? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody voted? Okay. Opposed or abstentions? You were not here.
I abstained, yeah.
Okay.
I was not quite sure.
Okay, just wanted. Okay. We've approved the minutes. Communications, are there any communications? No? Is there anything else for the clerk's report? Okay. Recognition of groups or individual visitors, I see no such people, so we move on to consent agenda, and we need a motion accordingly to go into consent agenda.
We go into consent agenda.
Russ moves and
Second.
Ruth will second. Okay, all in favor of entering consent agenda?
Aye.
Okay, any opposition or abstention? Seeing none, we are in consent agenda, and we'll start with finance.
All right, finance met on the 15th of November and approved warrants 1082, 1084, 1085, 1087, 1088, 1089, 1090, in the total amount of $801,541.62. And we also, at a past meeting, approved payrolls of $431,877.40, $458,124.17, and $439,487.72. And I think we voted on those last time, but I'm not sure, so vote on them again.
And there's three payrolls because the way October fell, there was an October 2nd, 16th, and 30th payrolls. Typically, we have two. Anything else?
We are going to meet again, not Thursday of this week, but Thursday of next week, 17th of December, in the James Kane Conference Room, Green Street, at 8 a.m.
Okay, and the rest of our time has been spent reviewing budgets. And we will be doing some more of that. Okay, how about SCSU finance? What?
We've met twice, I believe, since our last meeting, November 18th and 2nd of December. And we've gone over the budget proposals for the central office curriculum grants, and then the last meeting was going through special ed. And so there are various adjustments. Part of it is consolidating more special ed into the central office or the SU. And then we meet again Wednesday, and there's still, numbers coming in and trying to figure out, some questions of whether special ed paras stay in the schools or come back into the SU, and those sorts of things. And now that Frank has the numbers that came in last night, we'll figure that out. So it's still a bit in flux, but Wednesday we hope to have a budget that we can approve if Frank's stamina stays there, now that those numbers are in. So we will be reviewing those, and then if everything goes well, and then Thursday there's an SU meeting, and I forget who the three are. Ruth is one, I'm one, and who's the third?
Yeah,
You are, Pat, here, so the three of us will be there on Thursday at 6. what is it?
6:30 or
6:30,
6:45 or whatever it is.
Um,
We'll show up there sometime.
I have it at 6 o'clock, is that right? Is that wrong? Oh, actually, I have a budget, Virginia, 6 PM, no, that's the wrong one.
Let's all get there by 5:30, then, to be sure.
I've got the,
Whatever it is.
6:30 is what I have.
oh, yeah, 6:30, you're right. At the top is the finance committee in Putney Central.
6:30 going
6:30
Going
on
twice.
Thursday.
6:30.
But 6 o'clock, oh, it's actually the finance on Wednesday, 6:15. We push it back to 6:15. This says 6 o'clock.
The Wednesday, yes, we did.
Wednesday is
6:15.
even though this says 6. It's
Everybody have that?
Okay.
Not smart enough to be on
Keith, it's not like school where it starts the same time every morning.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Planning and policy,
Has not met.
not met, and doesn't have any, we're not waiting anything at this point, are
No,
we?
we,
Everything has been presented, has been approved.
well, we have to finalize the 5 policies that are
Oh, that's right.
on the table. Planning policy's done to them, it just needs to, they need to be adopted by the board, which will not be happening at this meeting, it will be happening at the meeting of the 21st.
Okay, and that's right, and, that's right, because this was gonna be an additional reading,
Mainly because of Thanksgiving.
right? Okay, so Barb has that down for adoption in the next agenda,
Yeah.
for the next meeting, okay. All right, teacher curriculum,
Has not
Has
met.
not met.
BAMS committee,
Hasn't met.
Has not met.
okay, and WRCC has not met, right, Ruth?
No. Unless you met without me.
No, didn't meet by myself. Okay, so I believe that takes care of consent agenda. Is there a move to approve according?
So moved.
Second.
Sean and Mike, second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none, it's unanimous. Consent agenda. And we will move on to administrative reports. And might as well start with BAMS.
All right. Well, I do have some exciting news. Have I mentioned a new grant at all that Lyle Holiday's been working on? So Lyle's been working with the state. She proposed a grant, kind of came in short notice. She, in like a couple weeks, kind of hammered together all the information, and we got approved for a pretty significant grant to support math and literacy beyond our normal school hours. And it's essentially money to pay for teachers to stay extra, either before school or after school, to work with kids to target learning gaps in math and literacy and skills based on data. And so we have, the grant has money for a teacher coordinator and then teaching positions and some math supplies. It's a pretty substantial amount of money. And so I'm pretty excited about that. I've got the word out to the teachers that we're looking to hire people. And it's fully funded through this grant through the state. And I assume that it's an effort to try and target, students who are struggling. Well, it clearly is trying to target students who are struggling in those areas. So I'm happy about that. We'll see what the response is in getting kids here for more support. Before Thanksgiving, we had a few traditional kind of Thanksgiving things. Team Taurus does something called Turkey Day, and they do like a kind of a Thanksgiving meal, and they work with the cafe services to provide turkey, and then they fix up, the kids cook a lot of food, and they have a big meal as a quarter of the school, Team Taurus, which is 1/4. And then some other programs had Thanksgiving meals. The Peak program that I was mentioning earlier in the budgeting, they cooked their own meal and invited some of us over. It was a great celebration. Tomorrow morning and potentially a couple other times, I'm going to be doing some staff training in regards to Alice. I believe we've talked about it some here. It's a new approach to dealing with violent intruders in school. So we're going to be doing some staff training tomorrow. They've been exposed to it a little bit, but high school's a little bit ahead of us, and going to try and catch up the middle school staff as best we can. And last but not least, I have a few staff changes. Our front office clerk, Marisa Del Maso Road, has left, and I'm currently I have that position advertised. We'll be hiring a new office clerk to support the front office. And Wendy Christ, who's been a para for a couple of years here and had been over at Academy School, got hired to take a health office position. And so I hired Ben Robb as our new paraprofessional, regular ed paraprofessional. Ben's the son of Karen and Charlie Robb in town, and Ben's done a lot of substituting for us, and we're excited to have him. So that's it for BAMS. Any questions?
Thank you.
How
So
was that,
we'll move
Steve?
on to BUHS, and
3 minutes?
Mr. Goodman was here earlier ahead of time,
Right?
and I will take the responsibility for having excused him to scout at the basketball game.
Sure.
For the time being.
So here he is right now.
And here he is, as if I'm you. I just wanted everyone to understand it wasn't like he was dusting us off, but-
So do you want me to go and then I'll
and whatever,
double
however
back?
you want to do it.
Give him a
But
chance to settle in.
more importantly, what's the score, how we do?
Turtles have an 18-day lead through 1/4.
What time the game? Oh.
Adjourn.
6:30.
You can let him report first
Sure.
if you want, and he can go back to the game.
Sure. I've been sharing a lot. Student Council had our Feed the Thousands Assembly last Tuesday, where we had guest speakers Tim Johnson and Patrick O'Donnell, I believe. And we showed a video that Student Council shot. We went down to the drop-in center on South Main Street, where we donate the products of our Feed the Thousands donations. And we interviewed the head there and got some great footage and some great information about how our Feed the Thousands drives helps the community at large and provides some safety for the food insecurity that is so prevalent in our community. As of today, I believe we have over 250 items in less than a week, which is a great start. This drive ends December 18th, and we're in the outreach stages right now. We're talking to people, we're trying to raise awareness, trying to raise donations. And we're also trying to reach out to local businesses. There's a large emphasis this year on personal hygiene items, feminine hygiene products, toothpaste and toothbrushes, especially diapers, which are items that people don't necessarily associate with food insecurity, but are tough for low-income families to buy and to provide for their kids. So we're trying to raise a general awareness about how our draft specifically can help the community at large. That's what we have going on right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, and I guess I want to also acknowledge the great work student council did. The assemblies were wonderful, informative, and really kind of highlighted the need for all of us to kind of pitch in for our students and families that are less fortunate. Along that same line, I would also like to put in a plug for the Vermont Food Bank is doing a produce distribution here on the first and third Mondays. And it's at the Career Center entrance, and any WSSU family can come here and they can get produce. And there's no qualification, just show up and get produce. And right now, I believe it's squash and some lettuce and some things of that nature, root vegetables. They'll be here every first and third Monday, so please spread the word that.
At what time?
10 o'clock.
10?
10 a.m. At the bus loop. They're actually using the bus loop entrance. They're set up there. And, you know, it's a great free resource, and we really appreciate the food bank for thinking of us as a
There's the
distribution.
first and third
Mondays.
Monday.
They were out there today.
Yeah.
Really,
1 hour.
really high quality food, lots of it.
Yeah.
Apples and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, so,
Is it being well utilized?
It hadn't been, but it is now, well, today there was a line out there.
Great.
well, Dr. Staley actually did an automated call to all families in WSCSU last week, and that helped a lot, so.
Good, good.
But anything, if board members, you know, out and about in your communities, if you could raise that awareness and continue to, it'd be great, because we have a lot of families in need, and, you know, one thing that people don't always think about, especially because, you know, Feed the Thousands is great, and, but the idea in developing the habit of eating fresh food and fresh vegetables is really important that we do that with all of our youth, so
So is this going to be a year-round, or is it?
I believe it is. As long as it's successful and they can keep moving product, I think they're gonna stay here.
It'd be great.
So, yeah, so. On a less happy note, we did get word late last week that Vermont Interactive Technologies, or VIT, state funding has been eliminated for that program, and they've rented space here every year since the new building was open. And so they are actually going to cease production and cease services on December 18th. That's more of an information for you to know. VIT's been a good neighbor here. They've used our services, and they've served hundreds of Vermonters who've done interactive television and long distance learning. And we're sorry to see them leave, but recognize that, you know, the state has made that decision. The week before Thanksgiving, we spent a lot of time as a faculty doing in-service, and we focused a lot on our transition next year to a proficiency-based model. As you'll remember, we've talked about this a few times. Act 77 does require that next year's 9th graders graduate from BUHS with a proficiency-based diploma. And so we've done a lot of work in the past year getting ready for that, and we're getting down to the point of implementation. And most of our professional development for the balance of the year will be focused on proficiency models and transitioning to that. One thing that departments have been working on for about a year now, and they're finally done, is making rubrics based on their content standards. So each department went through, they determined what their content standards would be, both in terms of content and skill, and they've written rubrics to kind of evaluate that. So based on that work they've done, we've been taking their content standards and linking them to our new graduation requirements, which are called transferable skills. And I'm going to plan to speak to TCC and give them a bigger, broader, I'm giving you an overview, but give them more of the nitty gritty. So for this year, the balance of this year, we're asking that all of our teachers kind of pilot some of the practices and pilot some of the tenets of proficiency-based learning. We have 2 teachers in the high school that are implementing this year and kind of getting feedback for all of us and sharing what's going on. That's Peter Canizero and John Kersey in the English department, and they've done a nice job. Part of what we did at in-service is we heard from them, and they talked about what's working really well with proficiency-based practices and what's a challenge. And we're going to continue to kind of use them as a resource. A couple of things decisions that will come to the board probably early next year have to do with decisions around habits of work And how do we assess habits of, a student's habits of work in the classroom? Currently, a student gets a grade of 86 on a report card. As we move to a proficiency model, that's no longer going to be sufficient. So we're going to actually have an academic grade, and we're going to break that out from what we're calling habits of work. How well did you work collaboratively? What's your attendance like? How well do you turn in your work? And so we're going to report on that as well. And so hopefully early next semester, I'm going to have some sample report cards to share with TCC and the greater board, so you can kind of see what other schools have done and kind of evaluate what we might do next year. So a lot of decisions will be made this spring with the faculty. We've got several work groups in the building that are doing great work getting ready. And more on that as it follows. And that's really the balance of my report. Any questions?
Thank you. Yeah, oh, any questions? Not, thank you. Mr. Dunn, what do we got going on in the Career Center?
A few things going on at the Career Center. On December 2nd, 4 students traveled to Montpelier to attend the Fall Leadership Conference for Skills Vermont. The students attended various workshops and listened to a presentation on how to achieve your goals from the keynote speaker. These students will assist in recruiting and fundraising for the spring conference that will be taking place. And also Project Feed the Thousands that has been mentioned. The Career Center students will actually be, staff will be collecting that food on the week of December 21st, and that's donated, and they'll be traveling to Brattleboro Town Schools, the high school, and the Career Center. And the food will be delivered to Hannaford's and packed into a trailer. And of course, that's donated to local food pantries. And the FBLA students have been instrumental in organizing the food collection boxes that are distributed throughout the Career Center. A few things going on at the Hideaway for lunches. We'd like to thank all the teachers, staff, students, and community members that have been supporting the opening of the Hideaway restaurant. Students have gained valuable real-life culinary skills with this program. Lunches are actually being purchased also from Hinsdale schools on a weekly basis, and they're being delivered by Hinsdale students that are enrolled in the culinary program. So that's been going great. And also all the staff at the WRCC has been trained in ALICE as of last week also. Mike, myself, Rob O'Connor, and Brett Gaylord were up there that had been through the training earlier. So all the staff has been through that. Questions that I may be able to answer? Okay, thank you. Sure.
I better ask, I assume that ALICE is an acronym for something.
Alert, lockdown, inform. Okay, I didn't know she was ready.
Alert,
Alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. Not necessarily in that order, but that's what the acronym is for. Different than our current lockdown, shutting off your lights and hiding in a corner. So this is for an armed intruder or a violent intruder that may be entering the space.
Okay, thank you. Central Office.
I don't have
What are you doing in your spare time?
Nothing to add. The focus has been on budget planning and looking at Act 46, and a whole lot of other things, but Ron didn't send me in with a report, so I'll pass.
Well, you're doing yeoman's work in the budget process, and we appreciate it. Yeah. And I have nothing in particular, so I believe that takes care of administrative reports. And under unfinished business, we have Act 46 discussion. There's a placeholder that we have on all of our agendas. There's not much else, I don't think, to talk about regarding that yet, but
Actually, I'd like to
Oh, you have
have some discussion on that, if I may.
okay.
And I did a little research today and contacted all the towns in the district. And I sort of came to the conclusion, because there is an incentive of 30 cents on the tax rate over the next 5 years for the accelerated path. It is important to remember that in order to be on the warning at town meeting on March 1st, 2016, the petition has to be submitted before January 14th, 2016. The warning has to be made 47 days prior to the town meeting vote. And because of that, I did some legwork trying to figure out what the incentive would mean for the accelerated path for the district. So I got the 411 from all the towns in the district, which is a really just a compilation of all the information that goes into the grand list. And the accelerated path does represent a pretty big financial number in terms of savings for the district itself. As an example, if I did my math right, the town of Guilford would realize the first year on the 10-cent incentive, $212,097. And that would be comparable, Putney, Dummerston, and have a little bit higher number on their 411. So their number would be a little bit more than that. Vernon's is a little bit indecipherable for me because of the changes that are happening in Vernon. And the town of Brattleboro has a number that's approximately 5 times larger than any of the other 3 towns that I just mentioned, Guilford, Putney, Dummerston. So if there was an interest to get the accelerated path on the warning of all the towns, it would have to be done before January 14th. And I know there's a study committee that's looking at it. I've been to a couple of those meetings. But unfortunately, I think it's because of the size of the study committee and because of the complexity of the issue, it doesn't look like it's going to move forward in time. So the other way to approach it, from my viewpoint, would be to do a petition in each one of the towns. You have to get 5% of the grand list, all the individuals in town that are registered to vote. And if you do get those signatures, then the petition could make the warning available for March 1st. The advantage of that would be it could still be voted down. It wouldn't matter, but it would give us the opportunity to look at the whole plethora of things that Act 46 does present to the district this March. Otherwise, it would have to be a special town meeting, and it would have to be a special town meeting in all of the towns, Putney, Dummerston, Guilford, Vernon, and Brattleboro, which, considering it's an election year, and we already have the primary, and then we have the general vote, in addition to town meeting. So it's my opinion that it would be definitely behoove the district to try to get it on the warning for this March 1st at town meeting. That's my feeling on Act 46 at this moment.
And we have 2 members? We have Ricky Davis and is it just 2 members?
Yes.
Yeah. So good feedback for the study committee.
Yeah, because I'm afraid that the January 14th is going to come and go, and then it will not be it won't be on the warning, which means the accelerated path is going to be the decision on whether to take that or not is made not by the people of the district, but by circumstances. And I think personally that Act 46 is important enough, whether it passes or not is immaterial. But if the members, all the voting public of the members of the District 6 had the opportunity to vote, that would be the most democratic way to approach it.
Ian, isn't the study, I'm sure the study committee is aware of the timeline.
The study committee is well aware of the timeline. However, I completely agree with Sean's lack of confidence in the study committee's ability to meet that timeline.
It's only, I mean, it's a little bit more than a month.
Yeah.
And you have to, I'm not sure, and maybe you know, Frank, the other methodology would be to convince all of the school boards in all of the towns to say, we would like Act 46 accelerated path on the warning. Otherwise, I don't think it's gonna happen. But the townspeople could petition it, and all you need is 5% of every particular town, and then, regardless of what happens, I mean, we could find out that Act 46 accelerated is definitely not the way for this district to go. But unless it's on the warning, it's definitely dead in the water.
My concern, because from what I understand you're saying is that you want to try to get it onto the into the meetings without the study committee acting on it, is your saying?
No, I would like the study committee to act on it. I mean, it's not for me to say, really. I think it'd be very important for the study committee to act on it, but I see the calendar ticking and the clock's ticking, and I can see that it's, you know, the chance that they would be able to get that by January 14th, I think is extremely unlikely. When I was at the study committee meeting as just a member of the public, I asked, you know, when the warning is due. I called my town clerk today and I found out it has to be 47 days prior to the meeting, which is January 14th. So I feel as if it's an extremely important thing to pursue aggressively at this point, because it'd be like either you get the choice or you do not get the choice if it's not on the warning. And I think it's only fair. It represents, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but I think the base education rate from the state starts at 99 cents. Is that correct?
That's right.
So in a 5-year timeline, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2 represents 30 cents, which is 1/3 of that tax rate. So the incentive potential is 1/3 over 5 years. That's a lot. It's well over $1 million. It's probably multiple millions of dollars.
So what happens after the 5 years?
After the 5 years, it doesn't matter, Ruth, because.
What do you mean it doesn't
Well,
matter?
unless they change Act 46, the law has been passed to change the governance structure of the education in the state of Vermont. That's the law. So whether you go for the accelerated, or whether you go for the conventional, or the last one, I can't remember the title of the last alternative. You have to satisfy one of those 3 things unless the law is changed. If the law is changed, then the law is changed and you start from wherever the law is changed to. But right now, the law of the state of Vermont is Act 46 as passed by the legislature, and unless we either do one of those 3 things in the next 3 years, I'm not sure what the consequences are, but one of those 3 things is going to have to be met. So
There are
it's the law.
significant tax penalties if you don't.
There'll be tax penalties. It's the law, so you can't, I certainly have no crystal ball to look beyond year 3. But I do think that it's only fair for the voting public to have the option to be able to vote on the accelerated path.
And I suppose we have to vote on this by Australian ballot?
Yes, it would be by Australian ballot, absolutely.
Yikes.
This is the law, Ruth, it has nothing to do with what I'm saying. I'm just reporting
I'm just
the law.
saying yikes.
But it's the law.
As I said, I share your concerns about the study committee not being able to get there by the deadline. We've had 3 meetings and haven't really even discussed our feelings on Act 46 yet. My concern about going any other route to get it onto, into the docket of the meetings is that Act 46 very specifically spells out the study committee and its role. And since the study committee had already formed, I haven't familiarized myself with that portion of Act 46 as much as I have the rest of it. So I don't know whether it is legal under Act 46 to approach warning at a meeting.
Well,
in
I
any
called
other
somebody,
way.
the agency of transportation, and they said petitioning and getting it on the ballot would, they said, we haven't thought about that, there's no reason that you could not do that. Because anybody can petition any vote requirement for town meeting. That's the democratic process of town meeting in the state of Vermont.
Sean, I know you mentioned you were aware of other meeting options, but you also realized that the general public in each town has up until June 30th, 2016 to make this vote. So
That is correct.
you
Yeah.
knew that, okay?
Yes, that is correct, and I did know that, but the idea of pulling together special meetings in 5 towns is a gargantuan effort. We are all getting together on March 1st, and that is the time important items are discussed at the town level, and I think that there's, from my viewpoint, it's, as I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I think it should be on the ballot.
Well, you realize that if it's on, by Australian ballot, you cannot discuss it at town meeting.
Absolutely, absolutely. All the information will have to come at
So you
pre-town.
have to have some
Absolutely.
good pre-town meetings.
Yes, Guilford usually does.
Try to drag people out for one.
And
Yes.
Brattleboro would be the only exception because their town meeting is not on March 1st.
That's right, you'd have a longer period of time.
Right. I don't
But
know.
Putney, Dummerston, Guilford, and Vernon
Dated.
would have to petition by the 14th.
You
of
don't
January.
vote by Australian ballot on the 1st of March?
That's right, if it was.
Your townwide vote for officers and stuff is 1st of March.
Right, so if it
Oh,
were
it would
Australian,
have to
yeah, I
be.
guess that would be on
Yeah.
March
I
1st.
So even
think
getting
so.
a petition and getting 15 or 5% of the Brattleboro, somebody would have to start tomorrow doing it. Which is certainly possible. I'm sure there are people that would think it was something that was, germane and worthwhile thing to do.
Just go stand on the street corner with Santa Claus.
The only reason I bring this up is because at the beginning of Act 46, I think it was back in the early summer, because I think the bill passed in July, didn't it? Or
Oh, heavens,
It
no,
was
it was
April or May.
beginning of May, the last day.
May 2015.
Effective July 1.
Effective July 1, yeah. And I'd asked, well, what is the timeline? Because I've asked that this board level, I've asked a number of times, what is the timeline? And I heard from the central office that it would be on the ballot, potentially be on the ballot for town meeting day. And I just came to the realization that that was, may not happen. And I think it's important to happen, so I said my piece.
When, there's another study committee meeting next week, is there?
Yes.
It's Thursday this week, isn't it?
No, that's at your meeting Thursday this week.
Oh,
I don't have the date right there.
I will say that in Dummerston, there is a vote, not a vote, a school board meeting. And it's for the general public to come and discuss Act 46 tomorrow evening at, I think, 6:30 or 6:45, or sometime along tomorrow evening.
Do you accept interlopers from Guilford there?
It's a public meeting, I don't think they'd throw anybody out.
As is the next study committee meeting.
Yeah, I've been going to the study committee meetings.
Yeah, that meeting is at 7.
I just, you know, they have so much to go over, there's so much information, and, you know, when I found out today it had to be on 14th of January, I just thought, it's probably not gonna be on the ballot this year.
But the study committee understood that date because it also coincides with the state board, state board of education's review of the study. And that's the 14th and the 19th. So,
But it has to be on the ballot, and it has to be submitted,
yeah.
you know, on that
Yeah.
date.
I believe the study committee understands the timeline and at the last meeting made a commitment to attempt to deliver a report to the State Board of Ed so that it could be possible to be warned.
And then if that did happen, what would, you wouldn't need the 5% of the,
That's right, it would be warned, it would be part of a warned article, assuming the local districts.
the town school boards would approve.
Yeah, actually, I'm not sure if the state board approves, maybe that does create the obligation for the warning. That's a good question. I know traditionally everything goes through the school board for any kind of an article on the town meeting school district warning, so.
Right.
I'm not sure about
And continuing general discussion about the study committee, I will actually not be able to make the next meeting on the 17th. I don't know if we can appoint an alternate, or if that has to come from, because the town board, I don't know if they
I think
gave
it
us
comes
the
from the
seats.
town board,
that.
because they designate the seats.
Yeah, I think that would get on it.
Have you advised, are they aware of that you won't be at the next meeting?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Is that a Thursday night?
It is a Thursday night.
Thursday night.
I have a work thing that I found out about today, so.
How fast can you move to Brattleboro?
Not on your life. I wouldn't mind telling Guilford.
Okay, well, it is a lot of work in a tight time frame, and it impacts the budgeting, and it's just a lot of balls up in the air to juggle. Okay, so we did talk about Act 46, unfinished business. Policy reviews.
One more note on Act 46, actually. One thing that we did do is form a subgroup to discuss what a unified board would look like. Ricky is our representative on that subgroup, so if anyone has opinions about that, give those to Ricky.
Okay. Policy review revisions, we have the additional reading as mentioned before,
Yeah, we already
5,
discussed.
and those will be on the next agenda for adoption. Anything else under unfinished business? Anything under new business? If not, can you write and make a motion at the same time?
I can. There's no other business, I move that we adjourn.
I second it, Ruth.
Mike seconds it, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.